Hi, welcome to Friends with Brain Injury. And today we have a new host joining us. Her name is Sarah, and she'll introduce herself and as usual be explaining what she has to share with us and her interest areas and hopefully areas that she will discuss more about in the future and areas which she can help us with and you can learn from her. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, my name is Sarah. I had a TBI last year, a year and a month ago, actually. But my story kind of started. As a secondary idea, I went to med school, like kind of later in life. Just a passion for the knowledge and really helping people that came together as an idea, like, oh, I can be a doctor. So I loved med school. I loved studying that stuff. I couldn't wait to actually work with people. Then went to residency. I actually just love learning about the brain and like, the pathophysiology of it and everything. And, just it's never ending fascination for me to study the brain. And I wanted to do neurology, but after doing some rotations and stuff, I fell in love with psychiatry just because I really connected with people that way, and I didn't even realize like that was going to be within me to be able to have that connection and really like, I'm shy like all the time naturally, but then like when I connect with a person, like just do it like for psychiatry, for helping them with mental health, for doing a job, like it's something came out of me that I never even knew I had. So I was like, well, I'm gonna flow with this for sure. Got into residency. I A bunch of crap just started happening. Like I got a divorce, I had a miscarriage, I had I broke my elbow, it got infected, I got sepsis, I had to have multiple surgeries to get an external fixator at the very start of residency. And then I, got a couple poor evals that just were attached to me and they wouldn't leave. No matter how I performed, I was still being evaluated like the same. And it seems like from the very get go, my residency experience, my like progressing into a, psychiatrist was just damned. But I still worked as hard as I could. Um, did drop so many outside things in my life, like just to make more and more time for my job. Um, you know, just focused on that more and more and more. And then I had my TBI after 1 year of residency, and had to take 6 months off. And I was riding, so I got my injury by riding to work. It's only like a 2 mile commute. And I was stupid that day and didn't wear my helmet. So yeah, that's a huge thing. And now whenever I see cyclists on the road, because that's a passion of mine, cycling, whenever I see them on the road, I'm like, and they're not wearing a helmet, I'm always like, wear your helmet. And that's probably not going to make any difference in their lives. But I just, oh my gosh, so anyway, beyond that, I had to have, so my TBI involved, like I don't remember it. I don't remember 3 days after it, but woke up and like consciously in the hospital at Vanderbilt in Nashville. My half my skull was gone, so they removed that. There was like a subdural hematoma and all that kind of stuff going on, and they were like, worried if she's gonna make it or not, but somehow I did. I'm just so grateful for that. That's a big change in my life, just being so grateful to be alive still after something like that I could have easily lost my life. 2 months later, at home, which is in Tulsa, Oklahoma, with my parents, I had a surgery to get a new part of skull in place. And then I was so ready to go back to work, but I gave it myself a few more months and then went back. And um, I had an experience where I was working with this attending who somehow either like triggered me with some sort of PTSD I have, or he was just in himself evil enough to cause me to cry about every single day. putting me down for just saying I had no medical knowledge, how I was inappropriate at times, and I know none of it was true. I even though after a TBI, I still have like a self awareness of my actions and my words, and some of it was harder to maintain. Emotionally, especially, I felt like I was maybe a little bit more emotional and harder to contain the depression I already had. Um, but anyway, one day after, a couple months of this guy, they wanted me to be with him for months at a time for some reason, only this guy. And I had a crying breakdown where I couldn't stop crying. And, several attendings were there and they decided to throw me inpatient. I was explaining how I felt and that I was struggling, and I didn't say I was suicidal, but they wanted to interpret it that way, and so they threw me inpatient without even um, like a psych evaluation other than like what they're thinking at the time. So I was inpatient for like 3 days, longer than I needed to, because it was up to my program director at the program, not my doctor, how long I stayed in there, which is totally inappropriate. Probably, I don't know if it's illegal or not,
Um,
but
I was about to say, forgive me for interrupting. How is
sure.
that even legal? Because
Yeah,
as far as
I don't know that it is.
I've been
Yeah.
involved in, as far as with my training, and your story has some echoes with mine, which kind of like as far as neuropsych and my own TBI. And by the way, those of you who are watching and who've watched my sepsis video know that sepsis causes brain injury quite often. It's very common to have a lot of similar symptoms, and sepsis can be a direct assault on the brain and can cause neurological impairment. And oftentimes, this is missed by even the intensivists will often miss this. Will assume this is strictly a metabolic um, problem due to being in the ICU or at lack of adequate nutrition or whatever, but it causes permanent brain injury. Please watch the video above for the sepsis. But just as a note, sepsis is a cause of brain injury as well. And so if you have a double hit, both a traumatic brain injury and a non-traumatic brain injury like that, it just magnifies the effects of the TBI. Sorry. But yeah, it's like you have to be a direct threat to yourself for others. And so at least here, but I don't know Kentucky, Tennessee, Oklahoma,
No, it's the
those
same. It's
motherfuckers.
the same. Yeah. And no, I wasn't homicidal. I wasn't suicidal. I was resisting going. I was in a stable state, like I was crying before, but then I like stabilized and was reasonable, and they still threw me in there.
That
And
yeah, that is
involuntarily.
yeah, that would
Yeah.
seem like a basis for legal action if you ask me, but
And
I'm
that might have to be, I don't want to because I know like that how stressful that is, but I think I might have to because so after a few months they terminated me, and it was mostly because of this one guy that I talked about, his evals. So
oh,
he kept putting out negative evals about me, and that's all they went on. And then they let me go. So now I'm in a state where I'm trying to get into a new residency, and really, I don't want to do anything less than be a doctor to practice helping patients. Like
right.
that's my and that's my goal, and I know I can attain it. So I still have that drive for sure. Um, I right now what's currently happening is I'm kind of looking into a new program. They want to hire me. I've already had interviews and stuff, but my old residency that I was at is not really releasing my records. They're not communicating. Anybody's not communicating with anybody. The program director at the new program was even like trying to contact them and has not been able to. So I might I don't know what's going to happen with this. I might have to just start all over, but it's
Mm,
It's I'm trying not to, I'm actually like less stressed about it now. I mean, being at that residency in such a toxic
Right.
environment, like that was just terrible, horrible. Like I just that was like sometimes I remember that experience.
Mhm.
Um, you know, it's like you're feeling it and it still crushes me. So I really don't know how I survived it, but I'm just grateful. I mean, there's so many. I think about what I'm grateful all the time, every day, and it keeps me going. You know, like I'm privileged and I'm blessed in this life. So
Your story reflects this is part of why I did want to reach out for you is because there's a focus that a number of us have within Friends Brain Injury is to help medical professionals, doctors, nurses, psychologists, therapists, throughout the medical world, ironically and maybe not ironically, because we're pretty bad at taking care of ourselves and each other in the medical field. Those of us who have brain injury, acquired brain injury of any sort, whether it is traumatic or non-traumatic, we don't help each other out. And we also lack knowledge about brain injury, and let alone what the lived experiences like,
yeah,
and often turn on
yeah.
each other. And because it is such a, and
At
then
the
there are
same
all the
time,
other social problems too.
we have to fight the healthcare system that we're trying to work with too. You know,
Yeah,
I mean, it's we have to work with them, right? But like, there's so many things like that we need to fight for because working with them is not enough. Well, they'll get
yeah.
us.
It has to be reformed and changed. And so I'm hoping, I mean, this is why I've reached out to you and actually a surprising number of other physicians and therapists, psychologists who I found who are in the same position. And I'm hoping that we can gather enough of us to both change things legislatively, but also form a large enough pool that we can get things done for our fellow survivors. Because I would argue that some of the best care I've gotten, the best support I've gotten is from those who do have acquired brain injury who understand. And I'm hoping I provide some of the best care as well. I'm a neuroscientist, realistically. I mean, that is what a neuropsych does. That is what all of us are, those of us who study brain injury, whether psychiatry, neurology, neuropsychology, neuroscience, nursing, any of those things. The we are neuroscientists at the core. It's just how we apply it is a little different. But and I would argue somebody who has acquired brain injury understands in depth. And frankly, um, sticking together because we are all part of the acquired brain injury family. Um,
Yeah, so I think a lot of the deficits if you know, whatever they were that happened because of the brain injury to me, like a lot of them probably like went unnoticed, you know, until I started like getting better a little bit, and they're like,
mhm.
and then you're like, oh wow, I didn't know that I was having issues with that, you know, and I
Yeah.
know that's the same for a lot of people, but
Mhm.
some of my biggest things I had to work on before going back to work were I couldn't read. Like I would read a sentence and like want to fall asleep, and yeah, and it was concentration was so hard. I would get so tired in the afternoons, like
Mhm.
and I sometimes I would feel like, oh my gosh, like my brain's gone, you know, like
Yeah. The
I've
neurofatigue. Yeah.
forgotten everything, like I can't learn anymore. But then like, you know, times that I wasn't so tired, like everything was there. And I'm like,
Yep.
okay, I just need to find how to get back to that state of not being so tired. But so I heard of ketamine treatment. I didn't know at the time that it has been researched to be very effective for not just the acute brain injury at the time, but also for reestablishing like neural pathways that have been lost somehow. And I don't know, I haven't really looked deeply into the science of it, but like um, they it had you know it helps promote BDNF, brain derived neurotropic factor, in your brain. And for me, it helped me almost immediately. I could, I just, the next day I read and I could read and read and read. And that's why I'm, you know, talking about it, just because it was so evident like the next day. I also used to like do 10 questions at a time for psychiatry just to like keep my mind fresh on it and everything, like a test study type thing. I went from getting like 3 out of 10 back up to like 9, 10 out of 10 every time. And so I'm just amazed with ketamine. I did like probably 8 sessions or something like that. And a little bit more about it. I mean, you can get Spravato, and that can be, you just go to a ketamine psychiatrist, one who does it, and then they can, start it for you if you need it. But so, yeah, it's not too hard to get into. And I probably do recommend it for anyone with those similar issues, especially if, depression's part of it too. It can kind of help alleviate some symptoms, like, temporarily with depression, but I don't think it's a long-term thing to really help depression. But for me, like being able to like get back and feel more empowered in my work and, studies and everything like that, that did alleviate some mood issues, I guess, probably.
Interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll confess that that is like I don't know as much, on that kind of side. My thing has always been more neurology, great, and so it's like knowing about that. I do talk about at least some of the stats that we're 8 times more likely after traumatic brain injury to have depression, 6 times more likely to have anxiety after TBI. And those of you saw the frontal lobe video know about pseudo depression versus depression, and about adynamia, apathy being often mistaken by PCP or whoever encounters you for genuine depression. There is a
Mhm.
difference, and it is important to identify the difference. People who have
Mhm.
the dysexecutive syndrome this is where psychostimulants are effective in treating pseudo depression. Pseudo depression, the apathy, as well as the dysexecutive syndrome. But that is something different. It is related to ADD, ADHD in the areas, the dorsolateral frontal lobe. When we've talked about that, when we talked about the neuroanatomy and phys, but this is something different. And so it's interesting that you brought that up. It's like,
Yeah, I think it does maybe the same thing as like a, stimulant, but it's like more long term and more like secured, hard to explain. Like I think it's more immediate effect.
hmm,
The ketamine is more immediate and just
did you
stronger.
it help you with any dysexecutive dysfunction? Because almost all of us do have some of the dysexecutive syndrome. But you did mention it helped you with a neuro fatigue, which, it's like there's debate as to the cause behind a neuro fatigue within the neuro community, whether it is neurotransmitter depletion or whether it is inefficiency because of transfer
Yeah.
energy from due to loss and due to neuronal death. And
Yeah.
that's still up in the air. And like a lot, as I tell people in neurology, get used to saying, I don't know, because well, that's the truth. It's one of the ones that should teach you humility because there's so much I don't know.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
would you
I'm
say,
not sure if I had any kind of executive syndrome, like making irrational decisions or something like that, or feeling just like having some like mania symptoms or something, like where you do things that you don't think about. Is that what you're kind of asking?
talking more
Or
about problems with attention, focus, the ADD and
yeah.
attentive type symptoms, the focus, some abstract thinking
So it definitely helped. Yeah.
problems with, well, like the not the hyperactive kid type, but more like that whiffy kind of like can't focus, problems with organization, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That more the dysexecutive side.
Yeah.
And you said
Definitely.
helped you with that.
Yeah. It helped
Definitely
me
worth
think.
reading.
I think it cleared up my thoughts too a little bit too.
Ah, okay.
Like I mean, sometimes after that TBI, it was hard to even like have a thought. I'm like, I would just get lost in thought, I think sometimes, but yeah, it definitely made them clearer, and I'm just like I could see better. I could see, not see visually
No,
like outside,
no,
but I could
I
like
understand
feel it.
mentally, yes. And, so definitely, and so you would recommend that a person who's struggling like that and also feeling dragging, maybe consider looking into then ketamine.
Yeah, for sure. I would.
Okay. And you said it also helped you with your depression symptoms as well.
It did. But that's more of a short-term thing. And you know what? To tell you the truth, the ketamine didn't help with my depression. Um, but I think the alleviation of some of the dysexecutive symptoms helped with my depression.
Mm.
Yeah,
As
I
we
don't
get,
know. I think I was just so I was so like I had nothing in me. I was so like mentally, emotionally exhausted from being in that place that I was that I
mm,
it was hard to depression. I don't even know what it is to me anymore, if that makes sense. But
mm.
it's been there. So it's been there for a while. But
Yeah, you've
I
been
just
through
felt
a lot.
better after leaving that situation. So as far as also like for TBI patients that we are, as in the medical field, I think it's best to not encounter such stress over a long period of time because I think that's probably more detrimental to us after, we have, we have some extra weakness in us now.
Yeah.
And, but I don't think it has to be there. I don't think that it has to keep getting worse and worse and worse. I feel like where I was, it was getting worse and worse and worse. But putting
And
yourself
most
in,
of us are PTSD survivors, and just about everyone here has faced some form of domestic violence, or men and women.
yeah,
And I brought this up a couple times. Female physicians, 1 in 4 are victims of intimate partner abuse, and 1 in 6 male physicians victims of intimate partner violence. And nurses, it's the same numbers.
yeah.
And it's disgusting, but it sadly is the way it is. And it's like we
I was
need to
going through
do.
some of that at the same time. Also, I needed to get rid of that. So um, I think ketamine also helped give me the empowerment to let go of that situation and not be controlled anymore. So ketamine, but also, it wasn't just that. I was doing counseling at the same time. I was, writing in my journal, like reading self-help
Yeah,
books and all that kind of stuff. Like,
that's
I was,
important. Yeah,
and
love
so,
what you're saying
and
about
also after they put me inpatient, they made me do it intensive outpatient therapy. So it was like 20 days of going to this thing of therapy every day, like group therapy. And so like they didn't allow me to go back to work. And so, I was like, oh man, I don't feel like I have to do this. This is not going to help me, but I did it. You know, the thing that helped me most about it, sorry, I'm off on a tangent, but the
no,
thing
that's
that
okay.
helped me most about it was being able to open up and share like even more details about my story that I haven't even told anyone because I never feel like anyone's listening to me. And that was a time that I felt like I was actually being listened to. And it was very freeing of some stuff. So, however, when I went back to work after a month, like almost the first or second day after his put downs, I went back to the same attending. I was crying again. So,
Mm.
and
See,
I couldn't help it. Like it would, the tears would just come. I couldn't control it at all, no matter how much I tried to prepare myself for it. So hopefully that's a skill I'm hoping I can learn to not just cry, but
and it's like, and this is something I'm mentioning, directing at people watching, emotional ability, and like some of those emotional dysregulations do also come with almost all form of acquired brain injury. Some of us get angry really easy, some of us become tearful. But as you know from the frontal lobe stuff we talked about, some people just lose any contact with their emotions at all. And we talked about pseudosociopathy. It's rare, but it does happen. And the alexithymia, having to relearn to recognize your emotions, that's often interpreted as physical pain when it's emotional pain. Those kind of things, but require some practice to learn to re-recognize. But it's like, and as you point out, you had sepsis also. And if you've had other head injuries, a lot of people say, well, gee, it's like, how can you do med school or anything like that? It's like, it's not our intelligence, it's the ability to use and manage it. that is affected. It is not the raw Q scores. You typically don't lose your intelligence, and maybe a point or two is affected, but for the most part, it's the ability to manage. It's this executive stuff that is so devastating.
Yeah. Yep.
So is there anything you plan on before we wrap up here? Anything you want to talk about in the future? You think that, you would are interest areas of yours? Obviously, ketamine and use of certain medications to assist, survivors' brain injury and some neuroscience stuff, which definitely on board with me. But, other areas that you think would be areas of focus.
Well, just personally, I want to include a lot of like listening skills to my patients, just one day when that happens, but just being able to like really listen and really feel them, because I know when I was actually practicing before I got let go, that connection, that like ability to listen and allows you to feel what the patient is actually saying. And but I know that's just for me. And just helpful for me. But for more TBI patients, and I think this group is going to be incredible. I really do, and I hope we can create tools to reach out and really make a difference. And I don't really know what that looks like right now. I really don't. Since I'm kind of new to this, I don't know all the opportunities, but I've been learning some, and I just it's really exciting. So.
You're one of the plank owners. You're one of the people who, as they say in the Navy, like when somebody does, it's the first crew on the ship. Well, you're one of the plank owners. So you'll be helping us to develop some of those tools and some of that equipment to help us reach out to other medical professionals and other just, folks, ordinary walk of life, but who are suddenly thrust into the world of traumatic brain injury, acquired brain injury. And so we're glad.
I think awareness of this stuff needs to spread for sure, and also the injustice that occurs within the medical system for the professionals, that somehow I don't know how to work with that, and I don't know how to make a difference with that, but I think that's really important.
And there are others who definitely, like the other day, last evening, I talked with a surgeon or resident who had a similar kind of experience, and just like, and I know some psychologists and therapists and things who had, who have the same kind of story, even those who are already working, who've run into that same kind of thing, and they're at threat for their license and whatever else. And you also face penalties if you're a whistleblower against this kind of abuse. So things got to change. So I'm really happy that you join our team, and welcome aboard again. And hopefully you can help us make a difference.
Yeah, cool. Well, thanks for including me, and I'm looking forward to this.
So we'll say bye, and thank you for your intro. And hopefully people found a lot of value. Remember, please send email to us here on our website, and also don't forget to check out our YouTube channel and our Facebook sites. We do have support groups there for those of you that are looking for something. We run these typically Tuesday night, although it is variable, at 8 o'clock. And although that time is adjustable depending on when we have our people available, obviously. And the website has information about different types of acquired brain injury, traumatic brain injury, and also look for us with our TikTok site as well as Instagram. We have materials there available as well. You can, again, check the website. And so thanks, and have a good day.
Thanks.
Bye.
You too. Bye.
Okay, and then